All right, we're going to get started again. So this next gentleman, Tim Fowler, comes to us all the way from Asheville, North Carolina. Tim's going to be presenting When Zombies Take to the Airwaves on wireless security. He's got some awesome Wi-Fi cards that he's going to be giving away, perfect for doing wireless penetration tests. So you guys come up with some good questions and join me in welcoming Tim Fowler.
How many of you are in this talk because it says zombies? Woo! All right, y'all are going to be really disappointed. I'm just kidding. No. So I'm going to talk about when zombies take to the airwaves. A little bit about who I am. My name is Tim Fowler. I'm an IT security consultant out of Asheville, North Carolina, with a company called MountainSec. You can find me on Twitter at Rubix. That's me. A little more about me. I'm Christian. Proud member of Western North Carolina InfoSec. Big open source advocate. I have been thoroughly enjoying this conference because everybody is talking about open source tools, giving back, publishing your code. Awesome, keep it up. Love Linux. Absolutely love it. More specifically, Wi-Fi. That's kind of my forte. I spend a lot of time playing with different wireless things. My first ever shell access I got was because I was able to compromise a wireless network. That was really, really cool for me, and it's been downhill since then. Something I'm really, really proud of on a personal note is back in March, I decided that I was going to try to take control of my health and everything. So I officially crossed the 60-pound threshold that I've lost since March. And in the InfoSec community, we all celebrate people's success, so that is something I'm seriously proud of. And I'm going to keep working. Next year I'll be a toothpick. So, because I'd like to be around a really long time to do stupid talks on zombies. Why this talk? Anybody got an idea why we're going to do this talk?
Why not?
That's I like that.
Because zombies.
Zombies. Who said that? Yeah. We'll get you this after. Zombies. We get to talk about zombies. This is awesome. Got the green. That's the whole premise of this talk is dealing with zombies. Anytime I get a chance to talk about something really, really non-traditional, I'm going to take advantage of it, especially if I can tie it into a security topic. But specifically, we're going to be looking at how can we possibly use wireless technology, 802.11, to save the city in a post-apocalyptic zombie infestation. This is going to be fun. It's going to hopefully be somewhat gainful information. So we've got a scenario here that we're going to kind of play out. We're going to be in Augusta, Georgia. Thought that'd be pretty convenient since we're all here. Everybody in this room is actually participating in this presentation right now. So we are the governing body over Augusta. We are made up of firefighters, police officers, our city administrators, mayor, everything. We are the support infrastructure for the entire city. And it is our job in the next 40-something minutes to try to save Augusta from an impending zombie infestation. And we're going to use that. We're going to use wireless to do this. A few unfortunate situations. Internet, cellular, pretty much useless. In a post-apocalyptic situation, we don't have that stuff. Luckily, our fine city folks have worked to get us power. So we do have power, but the biggest threat is facing our city right now, zombies. They're coming from Atlanta, from the CDC, which is funny because I'm actually going to do this presentation again in Atlanta, which is just absolutely perfect with the CDC. So here's the pretense for this thing. We have humans, and all of the humans, we carry cell phones, we carry laptops, we carry tablets, we carry all these devices that are keeping us connected all the time. Well, what happens when one of those the human beings becomes infected? We now have zombies with cell phones, which, for the most part, zombies can't really use cell phones. They can't update Twitter, they can't update Facebook. Unfortunately, I mean, that'd kind of be cool if they could. But for the pretense that we're dealing with really dumb zombies, if we any zombies experts in here, if so, we can argue about it afterwards, and we'll both be wrong. So don't worry about it. I will argue my point. They can't use smartphones, but we can use their smartphones, and we can use them against them. But we also can use the human being smartphones to help defend and protect the city. And we're going to look at 3 primary points that we're going to hit on today. The first one's going to be information gathering. Information is one of the most critical things in any kind of situation. Being able to make a decision, you have to have proper information. You have to have proper data sources. Otherwise, it's just good luck. We're going to look at trends in forecasting, how we use the information that we gather. We're going to make predictions based off that. And lastly, and it's probably really the most important, in my opinion, is going to be communication. And the communication is a result of the information, the trends and the forecasts that we make as a group. Then we have to communicate that to the masses, and then we have to start the whole process again. We have to start gathering information. How does our communications work? Were they effective? Are people doing what we asked them to do? Are they not doing that? Which then it creates this cyclic thing. So the first one's going to be information gathering. And one of the key things with information gathering from a wireless perspective is that we have to kind of change one of our thought processes, and it's really, really simple. So in most wireless environments, let's say there's a mesh network, a citywide mesh network in Augusta, which Augusta should really work on. Just look what they're doing in Austin, you'll see the benefits of it. But we're going to assume that we have that today. So you have all of these access points that are talking to each other simultaneously and stuff, and they're providing network resources and internet. Well, as we said earlier, we don't have internet anymore. So for the most part, the access points are pretty much useless at this point, unless we change this one concept. And instead of a wireless access, we turn it into a wireless sensor. And specifically, we're looking at a sensor is nothing more than a device to measure some physical property, record something, data, something. We use sensors all the time. We've got temperature sensors, weather sensors, sensors for just about everything. And we've got physical activity sensors that yell at you if you haven't moved in 30 minutes and stuff like that. Fitbits and stuff. We use sensors every day for various things, but when we can use access points, we can use existing wireless infrastructure as a means to actually gather information instead of just, we're going to provide service to you, in this case, internet access. No, you're going to be the service providers for us, and we're going to use this to actually collect this information. So what we've got up here are any people use like unified Ubiquity products and stuff. Anybody? Okay. So Ubiquity is a wireless infrastructure manufacturer. They make access points and things like that. We've got a couple of snapshots of some of their data interfaces here, web consoles, and you can't see it. A lot of it's grayed out for specific reasons and stuff, but in these things we have things like MAC addresses, which are, for all intents and purposes, unique to every single device. My MAC address is me, your MAC address is you. Well, if I'm able to see a MAC address, does anybody, just right offhand, what can I do with a MAC address?
You can
in the back. I can see the manufacturer. Anything else?
Smooth it.
I can spoof it if I want to. I do a lot of wireless assessments, and that's one of my favorite things. Like, hey, you're a legitimate client, not anymore. And so we have that ability. But the thing about it is the MAC address of our devices, for all intents and purposes, that is the identifier of that device. It's what determines what that device is. And because they're unique, it's easily able to distinguish your device from my device. But from that, because we have a unique data point, now I can use that unique data point and watch as things happen. I can watch as it moves from access point to access point. I can look at specifically the kind of data that's coming out of it to see, is this MAC address in active use? Real simple. What is the bandwidth? On the far right side, these are actually bandwidth usage for each of these MAC addresses. Hey, this person's using, they've used like 4 megs of data. This one's not really doing anything. It's just sitting there. So we have all of this data. This is basically what I classify as wireless metadata that for the most part we don't use. I mean, I will use, from a defense standpoint, I use MAC addresses and all to I'll filter them out, block access MAC addresses, things like that. So I use it, to try to keep my network clean and stuff like that. But for the most part, we don't actually use all the information that's provided to us. But in the zombie apocalypse that we're facing, is we can actually use this information in so many different ways. Any Cisco wireless system people here. I haven't dealt a lot with Cisco wireless. So this is a really cool map. This is a combination overlay. We've got heat maps. But specifically, all of these little callouts that you see, these are unique identifiers, MAC addresses, and where they exist within this building. Well, guess what happens when that MAC address moves? When you walk from one side of the room to the other, it moves. I can see that in real time. So the premise here is that in the zombie apocalypse, we're all going to be carrying these devices. I'm going to be able to, we collectively actually, we're going to be able to look into all of these sensors that we have. We're going to go, all right, we can see a bunch of people here. We can see a bunch of people there. There's nobody over here and stuff. And we're going to be able to look at these population densities. So the first thing out of the gate, we're going to get a snapshot of where our population is, because we don't have to rely on them to actually connect to this network. One of the beautiful things about wireless devices is that we're all the time probing for networks. And so as long as I can capture a probe, I have your MAC address, then I can track that. Even if you're not connected to my network and you walk over here, your device is looking like, hey, where's Bob's home network? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? I can see that data. We can capture that. We can then put it into a system that allows us to actually analyze going, all right, we're seeing we've got a huge populace right here, very dense, and then we've got almost nobody here. We've got a few people over here. And then in a few minutes, we can take another snapshot of the entire system and go, well, we're starting to see movement. These 5 devices, they're now on this access points, so they may be a block or 2 over and stuff. So we're starting to be able to just use these unique identifiers to actually start to quantitatively build out what's really happening. We're able to actually see movement. It's a poor managed GPS system, is what it really is. But it actually works really, really well. And not only can we look at like population density and stuff and the movement, but now so we've got MAC addresses. We can see where they were located. We can see where they're located now. But now we can add that to let's see if anybody's using their cell phones. Because what's going to happen when somebody gets infected and they're now a zombie? What's going to happen to their cell phone? They're not going to be using it anymore. Well, what does that do? All the data flatlines. You're still going to have data because all of these email applications, messaging applications, all of this stuff. Because remember, we do not have cellular, so they're going to be trying to find our devices are going to be trying to get some form of communication out. You're going to start seeing little spikes of traffic, but they're going to be very consistent, probably 10, 15, or 60-minute intervals. It's going to become really, really easy to determine, hey, this guy was trying to do something. He was trying to do something on his phone, and now he's not. 2 hours later, it's continued to baseline. Guess what? Bob's not very healthy anymore. He's a zombie. And so what we can do is, so now we have unique identifiers. We're able to see the population density. We're able to see the population flows as their migration and movement. And now we're actually able to look at the data usage going, not only can I determine fairly accurately what the zombie population of this subset is, but as well as the human population. In that small scenario, we gain so much vital information that can help us make decisions. Because if we have a large populace over here, but there's nobody over here, I mean, there's no zombies, there's no nothing. Well, where would we try to get people to navigate to? We want them to go to safety. And we can see this snapshot going, we have safe zones within our cities. that we can then try to get people to safety. This is one of my favorite info that we've got. This is a map that a gentleman named Brendan O'Connor did. He did a talk at Black Hat, I believe Black Hat last year, dealing with creepy doll and F-bombs. I encourage you to look that up. But what this is so he simply had a sensor. It is a Raspberry Pi based sensor with a couple of wireless adapters and stuff. And all he did, put it on a bicycle with battery pack, and he rode down the street. Every single one of these points are unique devices that he found on the network. Or just not on the network, but just over the air. Nobody connected to him or anything like that. He was just able to grab this simply out of the air. So he's on a mobile sensor. But what if these sensors are stationary and the targets are moving? You can easily see is if you're walking through this, through the visibility of these access points or sensors, we're going to pick you up. We're going to be able to see these movements. And this is a real world example here of where we were actually able to track human beings. And each of these are tied to a specific device. If you've got multiple devices on you, anybody here have to carry 2 cell phones, the work and then your personal? Yeah, now I've got 2 pieces of information where I can truly track you because there's commonalities between those devices. Yeah, so this is a little bit about the DIY stalker boxes. This is Creepy Doll and F-Bomb. Like I said, I highly encourage you to look at this. For about $500, you can create a sensor network of 10 nodes to do exactly what I'm talking about. To be able to capture this information, to put it in a form that you can actually assess this, make assumptions, try things out. It's a really nefarious way of tracking somebody. Thus far, it's legal because it is over 2.4 gigahertz. It's an ISM band. There's no license. There's no regulations on it. Probably won't be very happy if you get caught doing this, but it is technically legal. Anybody remember Snoopy Drone? The guys at Sense Post, I think 2012 DEF CON, they created this drone that was doing the same thing. They created the Snoopy framework that captures all of this data. That it's looking for MAC addresses. It goes as far as looking for like SSID probes, which means it's personal identifiable information. If I have your MAC address and I find a couple of SSIDs that you are broadcasting, then I have the ability to pinpoint your primary geolocation. So even if you're not from Augusta, but you're here, I can figure out what's fairly good actually where you live based off those SSIDs and some public databases and stuff. And they were just harvesting this information directly out of the airwaves. Trend forecasting is really where we get. So we have a lot of data. We've got zombies moving like crazy. The whole purpose of a zombie is to feed and survive. I think we can agree on that. So we're able to look at, make predictions of migration. Typically, I believe in my research of watching Zombieland and World War Z and Walking Dead and Shaun of the Dead and stuff. Legitimate research for this project. It's so tough, especially when you watch the director's cut. It gets so many hours. They typically hoard, and they move in hordes, and so it's not very rarely dealing with one. So you can look at it very much like animal migrations. They have unique paths and stuff, and once you can kind of hone in on their signature, in this case their devices and things, we can start to predict where they're going. Well, obviously, they're probably going to go where the most people are, because it's the easiest and stuff. So by understanding that, we're going like, hey, they're headed to, I don't know much about Augusta, forgive me, so they're headed towards the mall. Zombies at the mall, that'd be fun. But that could be a problem, because zombies don't know, but there's some basic instinctual things that's going to happen. You've got to treat them pretty much like animal instincts and stuff. They're probably going to do a pack mentality, and so if we go after a bunch of people, the big fat people like myself, we're screwed, because y'all are going to run, and I'm still going to be left behind, and I'm going to get attacked. And the zombies are going to be happy, and it's all this stuff. But if we're able to properly forecast and make these predictions based off the populations, based off the movement, based off the data trends and stuff, then we can actually go, hey, we can actually start to step up our game. We're not just going, dear Augusta, we're sorry. Good luck. We can go, we've got a plan. We're going to try to get you to safety and stuff. What we've got up here is several different migration and prediction forecasts we've got in the bottom right. Anybody recognize that? What that one is? Hurricanes. It's hurricane predictions from 2013 with percentage going, hey, guess what? This is where they're going to go. They were wrong, but at least they made predictions and stuff. Weathermen. I mean, is it going to snow? 50-50. I mean, yeah, it's September, so it's probably not going to snow, but I can say the 50% chance of snow, and I'll be right 100% of the time. So predictions are, you know, kind of, but at least we have some data to make these predictions off of. We can model things. The top right, anybody guess what that one is? It's for an adapter. Yes?
Earthquakes?
Yes. It's seismic. I'll get to this. Yeah. This is a seismic prediction. Well, how did they come up with this seismic prediction? They collected data. They go, hey, we've got a bunch of seismic sensors, and they collected this data over time, and they go, hey, this is most likely the hot zone. And so we're able to use the same thing to create forecasting stuff. We have migrations up here. These are some kind of rare bird from Asia. It just looks like a cool one. But in the top left, the bottom right is just birds in general and the types of birds and stuff. Well, all this stuff is data over time. And that's one of the problems that we're going to have in the zombie infestation. We have to get the data fast. And we have to be able to act on it fast. You know, 8 hours into the zombie apocalypse, I think I read some research into the zombies that like 30% of the population will at that point be infected within 8 hours in a given urban environment and stuff. That's crazy. So we've got to be able to act fast and stuff. Which takes me to another point with this wireless stuff. Up until this point, we've been assuming that we started doing this at patient 0. When in reality, we've probably been doing this for years. We've probably had these data sensors, wireless sensors, access points, cataloging all this data, looking at the baseline traffic, being able to follow movement and stuff. Because if we had done that, it would be really easy to make these predictions. Whereas if we're doing it just right now, day 1 or 0, we're making a lot of guesses and stuff. This is the really, really big thing. That everything up until this point in the zombie apocalypse scenario that we've got, it all culminates into this one topic: communication. So we have data. We know where they're at. We know where they're moving. We can predict how fast they're moving for the most part. You know, just divide by the time it takes from access point to access point, the distance traveled, and there we've got some quantitative data there. What good does that do us if we cannot communicate? We don't have cell phones. The internet's basically broken. So what do? How do we solve this problem? Guess what? We can use wireless. It helps a lot. Specifically, any ham radio guys here? Okay, you guys in a post-apocalyptic situation will be my best friends. Okay, I love you guys. And we all should, and there's several reasons, because ham radio guys, they're for the most part, they're absolutely awesome. But I mean, for the most part, ham radio was designed for emergency situations. Like, that's their bread and butter and stuff. These guys are going to have communication systems that are going to allow us to talk. First of all, we're going to be able, we said Airwaves, so I'm not just using Airwaves 2.11. They're going to be able to actually talk. They're actually going to be able to give audio instructions, vocal instructions to people, like turn on the radio and like, hey, run. I mean, it's pretty simple, but run. Just run. Go. Go here, go there, and stuff. So the ham radio guys are going to be really, really important, especially early on, because they have a huge advantage over just traditional wireless systems, because I can go this far with my signal. They can go this far. They can reach a lot of masses and things like that. So, and they get really cool antenna arrays like this. Because I'm not hand licensed, I can't hook an alpha adapter to this. Oh, I need to get my license just to do that. So, and the reason why I want to do this is they're able to operate on the 802.11 spectrum, channels 1 through 6. So this is the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. They can operate that, which is awesome because now we have an overlap of systems. So we've got the ham radio guys that are able to talk over like 900 megahertz and all these other different channels and stuff. But now they can actually use our device communication spectrum as well. So now we can set up stuff like IRC, can broadcast, people can actually connect to our sensor network, and we'd actually be able to give them instructions. They'd be able to give real-time feedback. Sorry, guy, I'm going to send you out in the field. Good luck. We're going to stay here. You're going to go out in the field, and you're going to report back. You're going to be able to utilize some of this stuff over ham radio, and specifically the 802.11, those first 6 channels, so that we can actually set up additional communication means. So we can start actually rebuilding the infrastructure while we're doing this. So we can actually have our citizens stuff start reporting back into. Imagine if as a citizen, if you just pulled up your cell phone and you opened up the browser and it automatically just took you to a web page that had instructions. We can do that easily with this infrastructure that has actually survived and will most likely survive the post-apocalyptic situation, because ham radio guys are a little weird and they're protective of their stuff. And they fear EMPs and all this other stuff. They're gonna be our best friends. I made friends with a ham radio guy. I made friends with ham radio guys because of this. You probably can't read it, but this is a little excerpt from Wikipedia, specifically dealing with the FCC regulations on 802.11g in terms of the ham radio people. And if you can read the very, very last line, it says the maximum allowable output power is 1,500 watts. Does anybody realize how much 1,500 watts is? You can reach out and touch somebody, but I can't. I'm still in the regulated 2.4 gigahertz, the 802.11 spectrum, because I don't have that license. I can't do the 1,500 watts. Yeah. Cheesy, I know. But it's still funny. You laughed at it, it's awesome. As a consumer, as just a normal person, there's a lot of variables that go into what we can do. But for the most part, we're fairly limited to about 1 watt max, and that depends on the antenna size and the transmission size. Generally, we're going to be at a half watt. So the cards that we've given out, they're really awesome, the alpha cards, because they will do a full 1 watt, but you have to travel to Belize to legally use that. So just change your country code, and it will unlock the transmission power, and you can go all the way up to 30, which is cool. But so let's assume that we're using a 1 watt maximum or 1,500 watts. I want to know what the 1,500 watts. This is going to be awesome. So the ham radio guys, they're going to be our best friends. They're going to be able to help us get communications to the masses, both through radio transmissions, but as well as we can actually use it to transmit data, because there again, data is the most important thing that we can get right now. Is the more information, the more data that we can capture in real time, the better decisions we can make, the better communications we have, and it starts this whole cycle again. So, anybody familiar with RISC architecture? Reduced instruction set computing, ARM. ARM processors are RISC. I came up with a new one. It's called LISC, and it has nothing to do with computer architecture. But it worked out perfectly. Limited instruction set communication. So the idea is that we have a small window in which we can communicate instructions. And so being able to do this effectively. Everybody pull out your cell phones or devices. Don't worry, I'm not hacking. If you're willing to, turn on your wireless and just do a scan. What you're gonna find, hopefully, the guys closest to me, is you're gonna start to see something interesting in your SSID list.
Dan, why are you still here?
So people are finding it. Okay?
Seriously, zombies. Run, run, run.
So people are seeing. Okay. What this is this is one of my favorite wireless attacks, if you want to call it that. It's using the NDK application, which is phenomenal. And I don't know why my formatting is all screwed up, but basically I'm able to broadcast instructions up to 32 characters, I think, per line, as much as I want to. And every single person that's in the vicinity of my wireless adapter here can see this, which is absolutely awesome, because when you're running, and I'm not going to run because I got a mic, and well, I'm just not going to run. Because if you can see that, it just says you have to outrun me. That's all you got to do, is just outrun me and you'll be safe. When you're running and stuff, like, you're not going to be checking websites and stuff like that, but it's really easy to go, all right, go north. Take 3rd Street. Go. This is really, really interesting, a way that we can communicate, and most people don't think about it. I cannot take responsibility for this. The guy that gave me the idea for this was Darren Kitchen. Back when they were doing the Occupy Wall Street and stuff, he had the Pineapple, which is part of the Wi-Fi Pineapple that can give away later. And it was a way that he was basically broadcasting political statements over SSIDs. How cool is that stuff? And then I got to think, I was like, this is actually a really, really easy communication medium, because it works on every single device. Mac, Linux, Windows, Apple, iPhone, Android, doesn't matter. It's system agnostic. I can get you data. And so if I put quantifiers in, going like, all right, I don't want you to run before you go north, you're able to easily decipher, going, all right, this is how I can follow these instructions. Guess what? Zombies can't read. So we have a silent communication system here that they have no ability to do anything with. And there's a lot of different applications to this, but this is specifically, this could be really, really bad. Now, I don't in reality know how many people are going to actually open their SSID list. Actually, I know a lot of them are, because guess what? These are open networks. How many people have your phone set to automatically show open networks? If you do, this is going to pop up into your face. Well, we're in InfoSec. We like security, we like operational security, so we probably don't have that. Let's take it outside and see how many people get the same list automatically. This is going to help communicate to the masses, and it's really, really fun, like, to be able to do this. But what's really cool is, because if we have a network of these things, we can put different instruction sets as SSIDs on each of these different access points. So if we've got this grid, and we want to get everybody up into the top right corner, we can systematically change the SSIDs of these access points to point everybody that direction. That's kind of cool to me. I get blown away that this stuff is even possible. So ultimately, what here in this Wi-Fi system, we've got communications and information gathering, trend forecasting, and this is just this cycle thing. The more information, the better predictions, the better communication. The better communications, the more information that we can gather, the better predictions we can make, which results in better communications. And this is really cool. This is the way that we can effectively use low-cost technology. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, why? I specifically went with wireless in this because everybody has it. What does it cost us to do this stuff? Everything that I've talked about can be done for free. If you have a laptop, you can do this for free. Now, you can't do it on that scale, but you can still do it. The problem is, zombies really do exist. Now we're going to get to reality. So I do believe in zombies, but not the living dead, but literally the walking dead. These are cell phone zombies. These are data zombies. These are the people that we face every single day that walk around like this, all of this stuff. They never take their eyes off the cell phones. They're always tweeting, they're always texting, they're always on Facebook, always checking their emails, things like that. The reality is we have a bunch of walking dead people that they're constantly communicating, things like that, but they don't understand the implications of what they're actually doing, the kind of information that they're publicizing to the world. And because of that, what we're actually starting to see is that our fictional scenario is not that far-fetched. It's not at all. In fact, it's real. Everything that we've discussed today is happening in the real world today. And I can tell you with 100% accuracy that it is because I'm doing it. But not just me. But the fact that I can do it means that anybody else can do it. Specifically municipalities, governments, large corporations. They have the wild wild west of the 802.11 because I can now start tracking people legally. I don't have to get a tracking warrant or whatever. I don't have to put a GPS tracker in your vehicle. If I control enough access points or sensors, you're gonna track yourself for me. And in some senses, there's not a lot that we can do about it. Wireless surveillance, which is one of the creepiest concepts to me, to know that it's not GPS, it's not private investigator hiding in the bushes looking at the binoculars. No, it's like we're actually giving this data every single day. Every time we turn on our devices and stuff, we're allowing somebody to actually be able to track us. And what they do with that information, that's up to them. Data mining, this is the big one. Retail stores, they love these things. They love being able to track. Best Buy recently, it's not recently, but there was an issue where they were actually using the access points in their stores to track people's movements in the stores to figure out where they were visiting, what sections of the store, how long they were spending time there. Well, that data has direct value. That data is financial value to them because they're able to go, hey, this section, our home goods section or whatever, we're just not making money, what can we do and stuff. So then they make these predictions, they make these changes, they communicate new things to the clientele, and all of a sudden sales go up. Amazing, it's just a little bit of data that was coming out of smartphones. So data mining is a really, really big one that we're saying, but more specifically is trend forecasting. We're able to predict not only the type of shopping habits that you have, how long you're going to spend in the store. I can tell you when you're going to come back to the store. I can tell you which coffee shop that you love to visit because you're broadcasting that SSID and it's unique to 2nd Street in Augusta. It's the only one in the world. Guess what? You visit that coffee shop. It's really easy to extrapolate from basic information that we're providing of our devices, this comprehensive profile of all of your activities and things. And I'm not the only one that kind of finds this interesting. There's some major companies. Anybody heard of Euclid? I had not heard of this company until I started doing this research. And actually one of my good friends, Michael James, one of his blogs that he sent me actually pointed me to this specific company. And I loved it because some of the wording that they actually use on their website is just absolutely horrifically terrifying for me, and it puts the biggest smile on my face. Euclid shows how your customers shop. Euclid senses how smartphones flow through the space and how long they stay and how often they return. That's pretty explicit. There's not much gray area there as to what they're doing. They're tracking us. And what's really crazy is they're tracking us with cheap off-the-shelf devices. And they're doing it for low cost. They're using open source tools to do this stuff, and they're making tons and tons of money doing this. They're using our data, our movements, our activities to control the zombie horde. We're ultimately the zombies. We're the ones that they're actually trying to monitor when we take to the airwaves. This is another one. Smartphones send out short pings as they search for Wi-Fi networks nearby. These pings include the phone's MAC address, a unique string of letters and numbers, signal strength, and non-personal identifiable information. That's a lie. Because these pings that they're talking about are probe requests, either to a specific SSID or now they've started going to broadcast. But I can determine, if you broadcast or send a probe request for Tim's home network, that's personal identifiable information. Okay? Now, what can I do with that? That may be a different question, but the fact that that gives me one just little bit of information that I may be able to use later against you And there's nothing keeping these companies from doing the same thing because they're collecting non-personal identifiable information. Yeah, they may actually be, but the next guy may not be. This is my favorite infographic that they have, and you can just look at it. And this is their whole process. They look at how frequent you visit, how you pass by location, look at foot traffic versus customer traffic. This is huge. Anybody working in the retail industry at all? If you ever, one of my first jobs was working at Target. This information is gold. Being able to work on your conversions and things like that, get your sales up and stuff like that. This is huge, and people are actually doing this. iPhone users, be honest, raise your hand. I mean, who went and pre-ordered an iPhone 6 or 6 Plus? We'll talk about it. Okay, so this is actually a little bigger deal than most people realize. Apple came out before they released one of their iOS 8 previews that they were going to implement a feature that randomizes the MAC addresses when you're scanning for these networks to help mitigate some of this. Now, their implementation is completely broken. It doesn't work. Good try. But when you've got entities such as Apple that's going, this is starting to become a problem. That people are actually going, they're exploiting the fact that we always have these phones to get this information out of us that they're using for seemingly legitimate purposes, beneficial purposes in terms of growing sales, and it helps grow the economy and stuff. It's just as easy to go to the other side of the equation. This was cool. So this is a wireless device heat map from the Boston Marathon in 2010. This was cool for me to go. There's some company out there that's actually going. We're looking definitively at how many people in the population of where people are at in these major events and things like that. And I'm going. If they're doing it, who else is doing it? If a corporation is doing these things, hypothetically, could there be somebody else that is doing this? Guess what? I don't have to have Congress's approval. I don't have to have any legislative authority or anything. I can do this for free. Nobody at this point can stop me. And if I can do it, everybody else can do it specifically. And that's really the scary thing. Is, while I love wireless, I think inherently it's broken. And that we're going to have to work really, really hard to fix and try to mitigate a lot of this stuff. And it's only going to get worse as we go through and add more and more and more and more devices. I was working on a network assessment just the other day where last year they had about 400 devices. This year they have 1,200 devices on the network that are bring your own devices. That's outside of trying to support that. God bless their hearts. This is I mean, we're growing. I mean, I've got cell phones, I've got laptop, I've got tablets and stuff. I mean, I've got so many pieces of equipment that's utilizing wireless and stuff, and it's hemorrhaging this data. So we've got to figure out a way to kind of roll back the clock and go, we're going to take a slightly different approach about this, because my theory is it's only going to get worse. Because everybody was like the NSA, Prism, all that stuff. I don't have to have a wiretap. I don't have to call Google. I don't have to do that, because here's the great thing: as a service provider, if I provide you wireless internet through this mesh network and you accept the terms of service agreement, I control that data, and I can put in there, I control this data, and if you adhere to it, so I can sit here and some of the very same things that we got all up in arms about as a society and a community that the NSA are doing, we can do for free. And if y'all want to, we'll do it afterwards. It's that readily available. So this is a real world thing. And this is how I believe that we could actually utilize basic wireless technology, your Linksys router, ham radios, and a few other software applications to actually defend ourselves somewhat in a zombie apocalypse. But also, it really iterates that we're living in this kind of apocalyptic situation where we are the data zombies. We're the mindless things that are just going about our daily lives, and these entities have the ability to harvest that data and ultimately manipulate us. They can do all sorts of things, and so as much as I love wireless, at the end I finish every wireless presentation saying wireless sucks. So, any questions or comments or thoughts or yes?
So, in a post-apocalyptic zombie infestation environment, how do you propose we handle the false negative situation or condition when all the batteries run out of power? Because I don't know zombies running the U.S.
Yeah, so.
They've been trying to do it for years now.
Yeah. I mean, no. So I was in my research of zombies. It's like that they. Some people believe that they actually do maintain some habits of their former host. So that is technically a possibility. The biggest thing is, this is where it's really important as a society. So we would have to be able to act super fast. We have 8 hours max to try to eradicate this. If everybody's on iPhone 4, and 4.5, sorry. But it's a legitimate question, and I mean, understand this is a kind of a far-fetched scenario, and that's what makes it fun, and we can laugh. But in this scenario, yeah, we would be unbelievably under the time crunch to be able to make decisions and be able to act accordingly. And the easiest way to solve that is to have years of baseline data. If we have years of baseline data, the moment we get the call from the CDC going like, yeah, we accidentally, like the zombie fell out of an airplane over Augusta, good luck, we'll be there in 9 hours, we have the ability to jump into action knowing that this is what our baselines are, and now we can start looking for deviations away from that and then act accordingly. But in reality, we're dealing with a very small window. If we were if you were looking at larger cities and stuff, I mean, the hypothetical is not even possible to do this. But then again, we're dealing with zombies, so it really doesn't matter. None of that aspect is real. Yes.
Also, creating a peer-to-peer wireless mesh network between all the smart devices that are out there, doing some kind of emergency app that everybody could install on their phone and certify for nearby devices. Hey, I see so-and-so, make it all be passed to central location.
It is possible. Yeah. So basically, with that, you be creating like ad hoc networks, and you would have. So the question is, nobody heard is like, what about the feasibility of doing like a peer-to-peer network between all the devices and things? And that is definitely possible. The problem with that is, I've got to be able to communicate to each of the citizens on how to do that. Now, if my legislation for the city of Augusta passes, where all of the cell phones in the city gets to go through my office, and I get to install my own software on them, that won't be a problem. But otherwise, it would be a logistical issue that anytime where it required involvement of the citizens to specifically do something other than run fast, it's become a nightmare. Unless we've made contingencies for that. If we had this system in place where we actually taught zombie education and zombie awareness, which every city should do, why not? Then we could actually probably do that. But it is, and the other issue that you have is a lot of the smartphone chipsets and stuff like that are very limited in what they do in terms of becoming an access point. It's getting a lot better because now almost all smartphones support hotspot mode and stuff like that. But it is feasible, but it would be a little bit more difficult. It'd be much easier as a city if we took control of going ahead and generating that kind of mesh network ourselves, because we can use it for legitimate purposes of providing service to our population, and then when all heck breaks loose, then we can go on the offensive with it. Yes.
The same wireless issue you talked about, vulnerability being able to detect, does that also apply to cellular networks? You do the same thing there?
Okay, so I'm not a cellular expert, and I'll never claim to be. My experience with cellular is this. First of all, it is very expensive to get into the cellular game, to even play around with it. Up until about the last maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, where we started seeing these like microcells from like AT&T and stuff that you could use as like range boosters in rural areas and stuff, that we really didn't have access to the cellular network because these spectrums, based off my understanding, is licensed to these carriers and stuff. In order to gain access to that carrier, network, I have to pay them to do it. And so the next question is like, well, my smartphones on this, they're specifically designed not to be able to communicate on the network in the way that we would need to be able to actually utilize that cellular infrastructure. I really, cellular is one of those things that I'm kind of optimistic for, because I hope we did it right. I completely don't think we did. But until we have the ability to do the research and to actually test how the cellular systems are actually working from a security standpoint and stuff, it's kind of the wild, wild west of we don't know if they're. My assumption is that they're just completely insecure the same way that 802.11 is. Yes?
To answer the gentleman's cellular question, I believe it was Lucian Fox in the last Batman series that did that with the cellular technology. Where they were
Well, see, okay,
so now you have research.
well, see, first of all, he was using echolocation, which was crazy awesome, which is actually completely feasible. If you could enable all of the wireless devices, microphones and all of the cell phones in this room, and you were able to actually, have it a protocol that can interpret that data, it would be really easy to create some kind of visual representation of the surrounding acoustics and stuff, which would be cool. Which is something else you could do. It's like you could just have everybody just walk around really quietly, and then we can sit back in our command center and watch the zombie apocalypse take place and utopia tomorrow. Any other questions? I don't know where we're at on time. So, any others? So that's the zombie apocalypse. We all die.